question of the Igg4 result that recently emerged.
What is that?
This was a result that showed, surprisingly and in contrast to the other true vaccines that they looked at, the mRNA vaccines, and this is not true for the DNA version, but for the mRNA vaccines like the Pfizer and the Moderna, that after 3 doses, they saw a radical elevation in the percentage of the antibodies that are part of this class called Igg4. Ig is just, it means immunoglobulin. It's a synonym for antibody. IgG is a class of antibody, and it fights pathogens. But Igg4 is a special subclass, and it has, all things in biology are complex, and so it has multiple implications. But Igg4 is actually part of a system in which the body attenuates its own response to an antigen. So the mind-blowing, and it's an early result, maybe it doesn't get replicated, but it was published in Science Immunology, top-flight journal. The implication is that the evolutionary path we have traveled is causing the pathogen now to be able to trigger a response that will cause the immune system not to fight. Nobody knows what happens next. It's a very dangerous discovery.
How does that work?
Well, think about it this way. The way we develop the amazing immune system that we have that allows us to fight off pathogens for our entire life, including pathogens with which we have no experience, is that we have a system. It's one of the 2 fundamental properties of our immune system that allows it to fend off anything we might encounter, and it's called the self-non-self recognition system. And the way the self-non-self recognition system happens is that before you're born, in utero, you have a huge diversity of immune cells that are all a little different, and they react to antigens that are electromagnetically distinct from each other. And basically, in principle, they can react to almost anything, the electromagnetic signature on the surface of almost anything biological. But while you're in utero, you're exposed to almost nothing from the outside, right? You're insulated by your mother. And so that means that any cell in that library that is reacting when you're in utero is reacting to you. And so all of the cells that react when you're in utero are eliminated, leaving only the cells that don't react to you, right? That is basically the definition of non-self, right? Anything that wasn't eliminated is potentially an enemy. Now that can result in a lot of weirdness, like you breathe in some pollen. That's not self. And so the body can react to it, and it can overreact, and it can make a problem for you that it shouldn't. But in general, this system just sits there dormant, and any time it runs into an antigen that it hasn't seen, it treats it like an invader, and it fights. But what happens if something about the system, let's say that your physiology changes in some way so that your own tissues are now triggering the system? Right? Well, there are ways in which the system can attenuate that response. When you go to an immunologist to deal with an allergy, and the immunologist will give you allergens, right? Which sounds like a recipe for an allergy attack. But the point is, if you do this in a particular way, you can trigger this attenuation signal, and you can cause the body to stop reacting to something that you were allergic to. So the idea that a pathogen, and mind you, not a normal pathogen, a pathogen that we can now be pretty darn certain was engineered by humans, at least in part, that pathogen is now triggering that signal that causes the immune system not to react anymore, means we're in a whole new landscape.